the wilds and then would come back to town to civilization.
I love that. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Well, you ready to jump in? I'll
Yeah,
introduce
let's
you.
do it.
Let's do it.
Sure.
Welcome to the Cannabis Connection. I am your host, Christopher Carr. Today, my guest, very excited, Reba, also known as Grateful Cultivator, is a friend of cannabis. She has been cultivating since Prop 215 days in the late 90s in Humboldt. She has a deep reverence for the plant, healthy soils, and wild spaces with experience in most methods of cultivation and particular expertise in organic and regenerative cultivation, as well as organic integrated pest and pathogen management methods. The IG handle is grateful_cultivator. Welcome to the show.
Hey, this has been a long time coming. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. I remember the days of Duke, and we would
Oh, the days of
the
Duke.
days of Duke.
Duke is the best. I love that Duke has touched so many hearts.
Oh, big
Let's
time.
raise a glass for the Duke right
I
now.
raised a glass. I got my coffee, got my water. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a big Duke fan, big Duke follower. Yeah. Those are some special moments you captured, and I've always appreciated like what you've been truly, stewarding Ganja Ma and kind of doing some really, really righteous works. And so it's nice to connect and have you on the show and kind of speak to it, because in everything you've documented and shared, there's a lot of intention, there's a lot of love, and there's a lot of like humility and reverence in what you do, especially with the animals, and and giving some space to like honor the plant spirit that is this wonderful inspiration in all of our lives. Cannabis is certainly a friend of ours and has taken care of our family for so long and will continue. And I truly see that, and it's reflected in that work. It's so funny too in this age of social media how you can kind of like connect and now we're finally having a conversation. Here and there we'd send a message or two, but wonderful to have you on the show.
Yeah, I thought of that this morning, friend of cannabis. And you brought it up too. It's our ally. She's provided for us. I mean, we all have this relationship with her. And through that relationship, we've created community, and our whole lives have been touched by her. My whole adult life has been completely steered and blessed by being able to work with cannabis.
Let's take it back to the roots of the Kentucky green bud and the Jamaican brick.
Right.
Maybe take us back to the journey west, and the importance too of I concur. I think my background too with cannabis was truly my whole adult life. I moved to Santa Cruz at 18, and the only guy I knew in Santa Cruz, I took his room, and he went on tour with his band and needed someone to take his room. So the first roommates I met, I heard a hum beyond the wall of my bedroom, and they had a whole indoor setup, right? So it was like, boom, like here you are out in the world figuring things out. And they taught me, they're like, hey, if you want to help out, we can kind of, take it out of the rent, right? Like we're going to sell clones. We're going to chop our way to the top and trim the harvest of all the indoor growers that was around that time of the housing crisis, and a lot of Santa Cruz was pumping out incredible product in what garage, 2-car garages, 1-car garages, 4 lighters to 12 lighters, and everyone around our neighborhood of Beach Hill was getting cuts from us, and so in so many ways. But the reason why I share that story is everyone in that house was in a band, the Moon Germs. It was a surf rock band.
Yes.
And
Right.
and same with my band. Our inception was Ancestry, TREE, and that the whole idea was we were growing to raise money for the album, to raise money for tour, and then
Yeah.
on tour too. It was always like we did the Seattle to San Diego circuit, and a lot of the growers this is 2012, right? So there was still a pretty frothy Prop 215 market, and so these farmers would take us in, and they were always so gracious and so generous.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
maybe speak to a little bit of your experience in music and cannabis and coming west,
Hmm.
and maybe the importance of the Grateful Dead too.
Of course. I mean, how can we talk about our culture without mentioning the Grateful Dead? I feel like, well, there's layers to it, right? I've been thinking about this a lot. We all talk about how, we work with cannabis, and we found, we somehow it came into our lives, and we all started interacting with it in one way or another, either consuming it or cultivating it or manicuring it or something, right? But I've been thinking a lot lately about the sentience of cannabis and how has it selected us to work for it to fulfill its mission. Like if we pull the lens back a little bit more. But yeah, I started out early on the East Coast. I was exposed to cannabis through my friends and the scene of the Grateful Dead. And I'm pretty old now, I'm 51. So I did have the blessed experience of seeing, Jerry, like the whole band while they were all alive. Even some Brent shows in the beginning. So I feel really lucky to have experienced that music. But also, what happened there was a scene, a culture where we had a set of guidelines to operate under. And the way we did business in cannabis was definitely modeled off of the lot rules. That is, if you found yourself succeeding in the business for a long time. So the people that were able to sustain themselves in cannabis prior to legalization, we were following those rules. There was an amount of respect, a certain amount of secrecy, and having to be able to really trust the people you're working with on all levels. And that model was passed on to us from the dead lot. So we all applied that in how we worked with each other in the cannabis community. I'm only speaking to California because that was, my experience. But I would say, the first cannabis I tried it was like Jamaican brickweed, and I don't think it even did anything to me the first time I consumed it. And then I remember, I think for me, consuming it is great and all, but the love affair with cannabis and me really started the first time I cultivated it, because for me that is the ultimate relationship. It tapped me directly in with the spirit of the plant, the essence of the plant. I'm very sensitive to like the communication of plants. So once I was introduced to a living cannabis plant, it activated me in a way that changed my whole life, because I've never had a stronger ally or a greater teacher than my children, and cannabis. So the love really, really, really started when I learned how to cultivate, which was in the late 90s. I had some friends take me under their wing. They saw me struggling as a single mom, and they offered to teach me how to cultivate. And they themselves were doing this method called the Amsterdam method, and that was like hydro slabs, flood and drain, and I was growing big bud. And I had it like super. They basically like set me up with all of the timing and the systems of how to really like be organized and when to do everything, right? And so I was able to it was like a 4 harvest a year kind of indoor thing. And it taught me about, efficiency and running a system. But I was cultivating hydro with not organic newts. I was growing Big Bud, Salmon Creek Big Bud. So my yields were huge. I
Wow.
remember there were like quarter-pound buds. Like it was like a pound was like 4 big football buds, and like that's what
That's
people
wild.
liked though.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. It's a
like back then it
different
was
era
cool,
too.
right?
Yeah. 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 It was novel. And you're like, whoa, look at that.
Yes, everyone was like, "Wow!" I think people called me Big Red back then
I
because it was
love it.
like,
Yeah. That's classic. Salmon Creek Big
and
Bud. That's
that's
a legendary.
Salmon Creek Big
Yeah.
Bud. Yeah, and it was a yielder, I mean, and this is back then before we had any of the tech, right? We didn't. I mean, we had the knowledge, but there wasn't the tech. Like, there weren't even carbon filters back then that we knew of, right? That cannabis people were using. I mean, maybe they existed in industrial senses, but
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
so we would like. I was taught to take pine sol and soak a sponge in pine sol and lay it in my outtake ventilation.
Yeah. Just pump out the pine sol
Like
terps.
try
Yeah.
and make a smell, cover it up or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so like, that first few years there, I was working to kind of pay back some debts and trade, because people had supported me to get started. I was like a single mom. And as soon as I did that, I immediately, the plants had been talking to me the whole time. They were like, well, we don't like this way. Like,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
want to do it another way. Like, we like the soil. And I was like, okay. So I switched to soil as soon as I was independent, as soon as I didn't owe anybody anything. And I began that journey of truly cultivating medicine that I really wanted to consume, and
Yeah.
that was like 2000 at that point. That's 26 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Isn't that weird to think? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
And,
And
and did you go direct in the ground? Did you do containers? Transitioning from
I
the
was inside.
Amsterdam. Yeah, oh, you were still inside. Gotcha.
I stayed inside. Yeah, this is, still, there was not, even though we had Prop 215, it didn't mean that you wouldn't get arrested and have to go to court
Yeah.
if you had cannabis. You still had to be able to fight those battles, even though Prop 215 existed. Even if you had all your paperwork, you still had to be able to pay a lawyer and deal with all of that. So in the beginning, I was incredibly cautious because I had young children and I was a single mom. So I wasn't I wasn't taking big risks. Like, I felt like I
Yeah.
was taking a big enough risk cultivating inside. So it took me, I'm trying to think about my first outdoor cultivations were more under the cover of greenhouses.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It took
think,
me a while because, it's just a different era back
yeah,
then.
that's it. And I think a lot of people, the lore of the Emerald Triangle, they think of those huge outdoor crops, but you'd be surprised that a lot of the true oral history of cultivation in, Emerald Triangle, especially Humboldt, was a lot of indoor
Mhm.
for a long time. Just for, there were, of course, big crops long, when things kind of developed and the unraveling of
Mhm.
Mount Cursa or this medical, there was this moment of like, wow, we could almost regulate medical. And that would have been kind of like the beautiful,
Would have been
it
amazing.
would have been
Yeah.
amazing, right? And that's when I feel like it blew up outside. But I feel like, yeah, even
Well,
talking, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these farmers I've spoken to, they were indoor for most of their time. Yeah, it was fascinating to think like that's just yeah, and same with Santa Cruz too. Like,
yeah.
there's a lot of tradition of the, of the clandestine home grow, garage grow, or just, warehouses and interesting spaces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. People were trying to be able to keep cultivating. But I will say that, during that whole time in the 90s, in Humboldt, outdoor was king, actually. Indoor wasn't as prevalent until a
Gotcha.
little later.
Okay.
Yes, outdoor was the most, when I first started, more people were, I think, cultivating out. There was more outdoor being cultivated, like by pound, right? Um, and the indoor stuff was happening in northern Humboldt, and the outdoor stuff was happening in southern Humboldt. And at that time, I mean, even places like Willow Creek in northern Humboldt weren't yet that bumping or thriving of cannabis communities. It was more like you had all of the southern Humboldt
Yeah.
outdoor cultivators, and then all of the things that were popping up north were maybe some people in southern Humboldt, they owned a farm down there and they had an indoor up north. Right?
Sure.
So it's funny
Sure.
how the culture was divided like that in Humboldt County. Northern and southern Humboldt had slightly different flavor. But when I first started cultivating, I mean, and I remember, buyers and stuff were paying like 45, even up to 5 for outdoor pounds. If you can imagine that. I'm
Wow.
sorry, anyone that's in the legal market now, please
So
don't go
sad.
cry.
Yeah. It's like
It
a
did happen. It was
10x what it is now. Yeah.
And then, the outdoor market began to really compete and shift the indoor market, because there was more indoor available, started to shift the price points, and having more middlemen come getting involved in the buying and selling process as well put pressure and shifted price points too. So, but it is funny that like Northern Humboldt felt to me it like the indoor zone, and Southern Humboldt was the outdoor zone.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. I love that. Everyone we speak to speaks to that, like making the treks up, getting the load, bringing it down, kind of the broker culture, the distro, like pre
Mm-hmm.
Prop 64, and loading up in NorCal and coming to Central, whatever, the Bay or LA. It was a big part of it, and yeah, it's wild to think too. Those 4,500 packs of
I
sun
know,
grown.
right?
Yeah. Do you
Like,
remember like the
let's
kind of
think about that.
cultivars? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back then. I mean, in my, we all had connects somewhere, right? So my people were more in like Honeydew and Panther Gap, but other people had people in like Bryceland, or like, there was just, out in Alder Point. So it was like we were all little circles amongst ourselves, right? And then there would always be one person in a circle that could connect you to another circle, right? So we're all kind of like tight little circles.
Yeah.
Trying to remember what people were cultivating outside back then. It was actually a lot of variety. It wasn't
Yeah.
monocropping. The market didn't work the way it does now. The variety was what moved the market. So I'm remembering weird things like, it's like pineapple and like, gosh, I'm just trying to remember some of these. I mean, obviously people grew like big, Blue Dream and like Mr. Nice Guy and Green Crack. Those were huge outdoor producers. But there was like things like mango and, like Scentsy Star and like it was just like a ton of variety, and it was kind of cool about the fact that it wasn't like this monocropped kind of culture
Yeah.
back then. But I'm thinking about the brokers too, and the impact of, we talk about the Grateful Dead and its influence on our culture. And we all kind of followed these lot rules, right? And there was a balance there and a respect there. And as this cannabis became more of an obvious place for people who want to just get involved to make money, started to get involved as brokers. What we saw was Back in the day, the rule was if you were a middleman or a middle person, you didn't take more than $100 a pound. You never
Yeah.
took more than one bill.
Yeah. A
Never. That
point.
would have been unheard of.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You get a point, and that was kind of
And
the
that's Grateful Dead
standard.
lot rules.
Yeah.
That's lot rules, right? And then we saw as it shifted, right? Like when people came in with different values, what it did to our culture, And so, yeah, it's really interesting. It was a delicate balance that we all held up, and it's it's strange that now I feel as though I have hindsight on it because our culture has completely shifted with legalization. It's become an industry, and we can say that we're in another phase with it now. So I think a lot of us that were in it our whole lives can look back with hindsight on what we experienced and how amazing of a time it was and how completely bonded we all were through this plant, how much she did for us. And we all had freedom. Like we had true freedom. We found a way
Yeah.
to hack the system by providing by cultivating cannabis, by helping cannabis fulfill her mission. She gave us life. Like you said, you guys had a band and cannabis was funding your creative endeavors.
Yeah.
And it was like that everywhere, right? Like we all we did it, right? We had it. It was like this magical time. And now
Yeah.
it's different now, right? But thank goodness we all had that time. And now I see even more how we all shared that together. We all created that together. It wasn't just my cannabis experience. It was like all of us. And it's amazing. It's an amazing blessing. It's something that if you weren't living in the Emerald Triangle in that time, you just you need to listen to podcasts to understand what it is we had going on. But we really were living outside of the system, and we were able to support ourselves in our dreams just through working with this plant for decades.
Yeah. 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 Magical. I love what you said too about the different circles and the different tribes, and that was a really big like moment in interacting, maybe playing shows and going up and down the coast and keeping strong kinship ties to these unique individuals. And I do remember too, like unique regions and different types of flower that were kind of like unique to the different zones we would
Yeah.
visit. And I love that. And I love the different approaches to where I grew up in gold country near South Lake Tahoe. And so that was a unique, yet pretty prolific, if you think about the ridge, and it's a prolific
Mm-hmm.
zone in and of itself, maybe not as well known in the zeitgeist of cannabis culture. But
Mm-hmm.
for someone like myself coming to Santa Cruz and learning here, and a similar approach, I had a mentor, and they pretty much provided my grow gear to start me out, and over time, paid them back, gave them all the gear
Yeah.
back. It was a beautiful moment too, and it's really that was part of the culture in a way too. If someone was taking
Yes, that
interest and
mentorship.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
part of your circle, and oh, how can we
You
maybe
pay it
look out?
forward.
Yeah, pay it forward. How can we help this interesting and cool person? I feel like a lot
Right.
of a lot of people did that, and I tried to pay it forward too. In later years when I had bigger crops of stewarding or bringing in people to
Mm-hmm.
help work the grow, people to help harvest, people to help the whole process, right? It takes a
Mm-hmm.
while, it takes a village too,
Yeah,
and
it's that interdependence.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point too, the funds, the energy, the life force that the plant provided was really the tide rose for all the boats. and
a hundred
it was a
percent.
really magical
Yeah.
time to be able to be in that flow and to help facilitate. And comparatively, I really relate to what you're saying too, because I wasn't taking huge risks, but I was doing some risky business and doing what I
It was
could.
risky just doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just doing it, and within the reason of what I could manage, there was some success, and there was like key individuals that really helped, and I couldn't have done it without them. And I know the life force that came from those runs really helped them too. And yeah, it was a
Mhm.
really cool time. So
I
fascinating
think
how
about that
fast
a lot.
yeah, it shifted really quickly too.
It did, and we were swept up in the fact that it was shifting. So at the time, it was like it was so in motion that it was hard to realize what we were losing until it was gone. That's the old proverb, right?
I
But
exactly. But you see it
but
in
now we can see what it was. I mean, it's something new now, and that's okay too, right? Everything changes. But I mean, back to your point though, I feel like how we were talking about how it was paid forward and someone mentored us and passed the
yeah.
knowledge on to us, and then we did that for other people too, of course. But I do want to like enter in the idea here that maybe was it cannabis that was selecting those people for us? It was telling us, no, I want this person. Like I can't help but feel like there's a wisdom involved in like cannabis getting us to work for it.
Yeah. I
Like,
love that idea. I've certainly
yeah.
had those thoughts, like the sentience or the
Yes.
can of consciousness is something I've always like meditated on or marinated with yeah, I
Yes.
feel yeah,
I love that concept.
yeah, where we're tapping into
They tell us things.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a like a almost an awareness, but it's subperipheral because there was a couple years, maybe a good decade, where I was just living, breathing. All of my energy was herb. It was just
Yes.
learning,
Yes.
working for others, having my own crop, helping others,
Mm-hmm.
researching, speaking to people. We've been doing this show for 11 years. And so
Yeah.
it was just like always, and it was amazing too, because what you put in, it did come back, exponentially more.
Yes.
And that was so rewarding. And it was such a, yeah, I'm kind of in a reflection point because like, to your things have changed. It is an industry and it's not quite
It's an industry now.
right. And I thought
Yes.
there was a trajectory or a career path, but for many it's collapsed or it's just altered to the point
It's
where they're doing real estate or they're doing something else. And that
yeah, a lot of people.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's real. It's like eventually you do have to find a way, but I do believe, and I still am curious, like
Mm-hmm.
what is that like botany of desire, Michael Pollan? Like, are we growing
Mm-hmm.
cannabis? Is cannabis growing us? And it's not a new concept. This is something with like tulips and the
Mm-hmm.
Dutch and yeah, there's
A
this
hundred percent.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating to think about like flora
They're
and
allies.
fauna and allies and where we fit in that cosmic garden of I love what you're saying too,
Right.
if it was deliberate, because I was a ripe candidate that would just, once they planted the seed, they brought a grow tent over, they brought lights, they brought ballasts, they set it
Yeah.
up, told me exactly similar to you. Like, sounds like you had a little more of a process and a system. I had to trial and error a couple rounds.
Yeah.
But to your point, I wouldn't have started cultivating without that first like
Right.
afternoon push where they're like, okay, what time you get off? 3, we'll be there at 3:30. We're gonna do this, and they were there till late,
Yeah.
helping me get this thing going. They're like, all right, now fill it, and do your thing, and if you can, give us the gear back when you're ready.
Yeah. But then the plants kept you moving along the way.
Absolutely,
I
yeah,
feel like there's just those. I mean, and I think it happened to most of us that Um, and even now, if you cultivate cannabis, it's probably going to happen to you too. It will connect with you. It will touch your life in a different way than if you just smoke it
I agree
or
with that.
consume it. And you'll see yourself what it is to have a relationship with the living plant. I've studied a lot of plants. I studied herbs and wild medicine. I'm, technically a certified herbalist. I know a lot about like wild California medicinal plants, but in learning about all of that, I learned about this concept of, it's called sacred plant allies. And every plant is our ally, obviously, on this planet, right? It's a part of the natural world, but there are plants that have a certain sort of like sentience that connects with humans. And I guess, fungi isn't technically a plant, but, psilocybin and its varieties would be considered a sacred plant ally.
Wow.
The three plants that make up ayahuasca, they'd be, considered sacred plant allies. The blue morning glory is considered a sacred plant ally. Cannabis is considered a sacred plant ally. Ibogaine. I'm trying to think. There's probably a few more, but these are plants that they have encoded intelligence and technology in them, and when we interact with these plants, they help us evolve. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's just like cannabis is the ally that like we have here, and she is here to help us evolve. For sure,
Yeah. 100%. It's a strong, yeah. Well, and it's fascinating too when things got a little more challenging to have a livelihood in cannabis. I did find a sacred ally in psilocybin. Quite,
Yeah.
yeah. And it has opened up, especially with fatherhood or being a parent and branching
Mm-hmm.
out of like, you know, obviously for a lot of people too, their first interaction with cannabis is consuming and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the culture of music and art. And but I do
Right.
believe, and I loved how you opened to like the true love affair was a living cannabis plant and cultivating.
Yeah.
And I completely concur too. It's like,
Yes.
financially maybe it wasn't as what a moment we lived in, but I never stopped cultivating, and I knew this is something I would
Yeah.
always do. I would always need to
Yes.
come around this time of year. Let's start germinating. Let's start thinking. Let's start, thinking about the soil and the beds and the prep and just kind of like what dreams may come this year and what
Mm-hmm.
cultivars am I going to get to know or who's coming back. And it's fascinating too, though, that there is this interconnectedness too of living soil in such a way that mycelium
Mm-hmm.
can help, build
Yeah.
build diversity and flourish a garden. Um, I love this idea of these sacred allies and how
Yes.
they each have intelligence and sacred technologies that can kind of. It's been amazing to deepen my relationship with the mushroom as well as
Mm-hmm.
cannabis and like to be more sensitive and to be more reverent with that and say like, yeah, this is. I think it is important to see it as a relationship, to see it as a. There's their teachers, absolutely, and they have certainly,
100%.
yeah, they've contributed greatly, even if it's not a livelihood. I think it is consciousness, it is growth.
Consciousness.
Yeah, there's a lot of growth in your development, in your journey here of having a human experience. Is it's important to kind of stay in
Stay
school.
natural.
Yeah,
Well,
stay in
yeah, stay
school,
in school.
the cannabis school,
Don't
the mush.
forget you're a part of the natural world, and these medicines, these intelligences, these frequencies, when I guess like for me, I don't even have to consume cannabis to tap into it, right? And like, or I could just think about a psilocybin mushroom and feel its energy, but they can influence us whether we're consuming them or not. But they definitely are here to, it's symbiotic, and like I was thinking about the mycology or the network of mycelium in a forest, or hopefully in your living soil cannabis bed too, and how we, the humans, kind of mimicked the network of mycelium for cannabis. You know what I mean? Like we're running around, we're connected, we're keeping it connected.
Wow.
And it's how these patterns just repeat, right? It shows us that we are natural. We're not reinventing the wheel here. Like even the way we went about our cannabis culture mimics, natural things that were happening.
True.
So,
Yeah, that's when you think about living soil or these we open with the redwoods, right? There's a mycelial network in certain areas that need something or that are warning other living entities,
mm-hmm.
or like that it's through that network that they provide, and in a way they cooperate, they share. It's a system, it's a
Yeah.
symbiotic system, and as below so above, right? So like in that cannabis culture, the lot rules, that principles, that code
Mm-hmm.
of conduct was kind of in a way a mycelial network.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we
And
were just
how,
tapped
and
in.
how, yeah, yeah. And how, being in the natural world, tapping into that and working on behalf of helping cannabis succeed is true abundance, because we were relying on the natural world. And in the natural world, there is abundance. In the natural world, you're born on a planet and there are things for you to eat, there's air for you to breathe, there's water for you to drink. And, you're abundant. You have everything you need. But because of our, society, we feel that we're separated from that abundance, and we have to make money to have it and to have things we need. But connecting with cannabis and growing it and providing it for others and working in networks and on her behalf to help her keep growing, it tapped us into that, natural awareness, that mindfulness, that being in the moment. Even if you were like super spun out, crazy, greedy, and hustling, you were still in that flow. You know what I mean? Like we all had our own style about how we went about working with cannabis. But in the end, like I feel like none of us were any better or worse than the others. We were all just like a big part of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like um, metabolites, almost just like individually, but
Yeah.
part of a bigger system of working on behalf of the plant. It
Yeah.
was interesting too. Like there was that moment of frothiness, like that green rush or whatever. And I love how you
Yeah.
said it. Like we
Yeah.
all had our own approach, and I worked with some really rootsy, wonderful people that I'm still connected with. But I also worked with some people that I haven't seen since, right? And they had a
Totally.
totally different
Totally.
approach. But I did
Yeah.
always find that common ground in speaking to, if we're doing a showing, looking at a lot of product, looking at packs,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to the lineage, speaking to the nose, trying to just
Yeah.
like find that spark in them of that cannabis consciousness. And it was always really cool to see how it was the international. It was this wonderful equalizer that we
Yeah.
all had.
Yes.
Yeah, we
It was
all
a
had.
language we could all speak.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it was. It was a
Yeah.
music, and we would jam. And it was fascinating because
Mm-hmm.
there's these interesting individuals from parts of the country I've never been or would want to
Mm-hmm.
go, but
Right.
but we would speak that same language. That was always really fascinating, and it did
It's
inspire.
beautiful
It's
how
beautiful. Yeah.
it really shows us the lesson of interdependence, like interconnectivity. It really, it's undeniable if you work with cannabis to, you learn that, you realize that we are all interdependent and influencing and connecting and connected to one another. And like think about, you've brought up music a bunch of times, but something I was able to do as a result of working with cannabis was to pursue other interests that serve my community, um, by way of like bringing music to my area. So did a, I had a company called That's How We Roll Productions for many years where I booked musicians. I would promote shows in Humboldt County, and I booked national tours and would manage artists. And the niche I fell into was mainly out of just trying to maintain a balance in my community. I didn't want to step on the other promoters' toes because they were already kind of working with, the jam band genre. And then there was another promoter that had all the reggae artists, right? And so I was like, cool, I'm gonna start working with independent underground hip hop artists.
Cool.
And so I developed relationships with musicians, mostly out of like South Central LA and the Bay Area, and would bring them up to Humboldt. And I mean, it's as much in their culture as it was in. It was like connecting the cannabis made people want to come do shows, right? Like
Let's
they
go to
wanted to come to
Humboldt.
Humboldt
Yeah.
to do shows. Like everybody wanted to come to Humboldt to do shows. So we had such a thriving musical scene back then. But some of these musicians I worked with, like Haiku d'Etat, Abstract Rude, AC Alone, Micah Nine, Living Legends, Sunspot Jones, Scarab, like these are people that are to this day still family to me. And
Wow.
it was because of cannabis that I was able to engage in relation with them, and we provided for one another, through cannabis. It's like, it's incredible to think about how much this relationship with this plant has brought me in my life. And then, like you said, when you work with it, you pay it forward. It's something she inspires you to do. She makes us make things better. It's
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and you said abundance, and I love the key like messages, these little downloads, and I feel cannabis has really taught that surrender in a way of trusting what will need to happen will happen when it
Mm-hmm.
happens. Like that's a hard thing for sometimes, a lot of times for people
Yes.
to accept, and also like job provide like it will
Yes.
work out. You will pay rent. You will pay the
Yes.
propane bill. You will get.
Yes.
You
Even if
will.
it's down to the last penny in your bank
You're
account.
going to, and then you're going to continue, and you're going to you learn and grow, and it's not the sky is falling. But it's true. It's like we're these thinking biological entities that need to sometimes just live.
Yeah. Remember that we have what we need in the moment that we're in.
It's a meditation. Yeah, it's
It
a
is.
well, and this is fascinating too. I like the consciousness thread we're on because it is fascinating how cannabis was a wonderful common ground to build relationships over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these relationships. I'm thinking about the players in my band too. Like I met Tomas, the lead singer, um, in 2010, and I met my wife in 2011. So in a way, like, and we started growing. He moved into a house I was living in before we started the band, and like within the week of him moving in, I got a job at Santa Cruz Hydroponics and Organics, and so
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
bringing home just all kinds of samples and things. And he was like, "I have these seeds. Let's pop them." And so like that cannabis journey was kind of like I always say like, "Oh, he's the longest relationship I've been in," but even
Yeah,
can
me too.
even cannabis, cannabis was pre, but it was that connection to the plant that really like inspired this lifelong relationship of not only creating music but being, dear
Right.
brothers and friends and lifelong. It's powerful to see that. I grow with my dad too, and I'm really grateful for that.
That's
Uh,
wonderful.
yeah,
That's
that's really a lot of our deep, like even shoulder time, silently working, bucking or trimming or doing something or
Mhm.
planting. Man, those moments are the bonding moments that I always like. Yeah, they're really
Yes,
warm memories, and I look forward to every opportunity to work in the garden, right?
absolutely. Yeah, there was a time when I took a break from cultivating, and it was hard to do. Like I didn't necessarily want to, but things happen, and I was like moving around a lot and just kind of figuring out some new things or whatever. And every time I'm not cultivating, I don't feel like myself. Like when I miss now I have some, personal growing right now because I need my own medicine. And I feel like myself again. Like when I have cannabis growing, I am myself. Like when I don't, I feel, whether I'm remembering it consciously or not, like something is missing. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm really able to like be back to it again. And it's like this lifelong thing where sometimes we do take breaks. Sometimes there's years or 2 or 3 where you're not cultivating, or some people take breaks from consuming it, but it's always still there. It's like a very stable relationship. It's like an old friend, you can just pick the phone right back up and she's still right there for you,
yeah.
and she understands that you might need to take a break. And that's okay. Like, so,
That's true. I love that. Yeah, it is like an old friend. It's always there. It's such a kind and compassionate ally in that regard. There's still
mhm.
I'm just blown away too how I still get so excited. It still excites me. I still feel like a student. I still feel very
Yes, every
humbled
time,
by
every
it.
cycle. Mhm.
Yeah, I've germinated so many seeds, but even today I was like, oh, I need
Mhm.
to soak those, and oh, I want to be ready. I want to come correct. It's like I want to humble myself
Yeah.
before the seeds, and
Yes.
I just,
Yeah.
I used to do thousands of seeds at a time, and now these ones are special. I have to be ready. So funny.
I love that. You want to come correct. You want to come correct, out of respect. And once you gain your knowledge of systems over the years, you know what that means for you. You know how to show up.
Yeah, yeah.
You
You're
know?
taking on a lifespan, a growth cycle,
Yeah.
right? And so that's part of it too. Is just like, am I ready? Do we have what we need? Like, I want to be
Hmm.
here every day, every morning, every afternoon, right? Like, let's get things. Yeah, those
Yeah.
little considerations kind of are
They're not
important.
little, they're not things you ignore. Like cannabis plants aren't to be ignored. I mean, sometimes they want space, but they're going to require your attention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of the magic, right? Is
Yeah.
they're there in your subconscious, in your psyche, in your heart. Once they pop.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I'm a co-host on a podcast, Emerald Alchemy, on the show
Yeah, I
recently.
love
And
Billy.
I love her too. I love and respect her dearly. And she brought in this term to my mind. She gave language to this concept, but our biofield, and how our biofield is interacting with cannabis and with everything, really, right? And it is that it's in our biofield, and we start growing it, and it's interacting with our pheromone signatures. It's interacting with our hormones that we're putting out. The thoughts we have are affecting our pheromones and our hormones, which then are affecting our cannabis, which is then altering itself to ultimately, like, I believe that cannabis, in relation with the cultivator, that it's in relation with the strongest, it will attempt to create the perfect medicine for that person's pheromone signature,
Whoa, I love that.
right? Because it
Yeah.
knows you and it's altering itself in relation to you the entire time you're working with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Because You can tell, like, it's like a subconscious lesson I've learned through cultivating it, and it's just what it tells me it's doing. But when I smoke my own flower, um, versus I could smoke the same strain grown by someone else, even if it's like organic, it's not going to affect me the same way as mine would.
Yeah, man. I feel that too when you get kind bud from a friend from afar. You're like, oh, this kind of tastes like Brett, or this tastes like
Yeah.
my dad, or I get herb from.
It's got their vibe on
Yeah, their
it.
vibe is like, oh, this clearly feels like Nick of Green Source Gardens, or I don't know.
I love that.
It could be like placebo to an extent, but I
Maybe.
concur. I concur because I grow a lot in Bonnie Doon, and then my dad lives 200 miles away in a whole different part of the state. And so
Yeah.
we grow a lot of the same cultivars, yet he always comments on, wow, yours is just so different. And I'm like, yeah, likewise.
Right?
Yours is so like there
I
is
love
that,
that.
there's an exchange. I agree. And I think that's kind of important too
Hmm.
for people needing good medicine to, if
Yeah, to
possible,
understand that.
to understand cultivating your own, or if you're not able to,
Right.
being somehow connected to the farmer so that you're, you know,
Energy is in
yes,
there.
exactly. You're an input to the medicine in a way.
Yeah. Yes. And I think kind of medicine and is harder for people to come by now that it's legal. Um, and that's something we can work on as cannabis, friends of cannabis,
Yeah.
getting that somehow back into play, as we're at this long race to the bottom with the legal market. Once we get there, we'll want to reach towards the sky again. So on that upswing after it crashes, maybe we'll establish systems in place that will help to bring that back again. And that's going to involve just having more small farms, more in all the bioregions, not just big mega grows down in like San Diego
Yeah.
or whatever. So
I think that's important. Yeah, and empowering people and inspiring. I hope this conversation it inspired me, but we're speaking the same language. It's nice to kind of introduce people to that relationship of the deep love affair
yeah.
is having a garden and exploring that, even if it's just small, plants on your porch.
Yes,
Have it.
even, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
they're amazing. A plant on your porch is amazing. And your neighbors might not like it when it starts to smell. People get really aggro about
that's too
the
bad.
smell of
Yeah.
growing cannabis. I don't know why, it's funny. I don't know. I like the smell.
Oh, I do too, and I think that's part of this, evolution of hopefully building more mycelial connections humanly
Yes.
through the teachers that we align with, and hopefully we can elevate the awareness in such a way that it's a copacetic situation for all.
Yeah. I think it's happening with what happened. We all kind of either people jumped in the legal game and some of them are still in it. Congratulations. And I'm wishing you well. And I'm so sorry if it's really challenging. Some of us jumped in, got spit out. Some of us never jumped in, stayed in the shadows. Um, but it's at this point now where what I'm seeing the trend in our community is people are sharing stories and talking about the specialness of what it was because we can see it. And the more we talk about that, the more we realize that we need to make space for that to exist in cannabis now, that it's legal. Because I think that we're all talking about something that we see slipping away. And so it's really good that we're all sharing stories and remembering that frequency. This is something else Billy and I talked about privately. But when we recall and we regale times of the heydays of cannabis in our minds, right? When we had freedom, we were cultivating, we were providing medicine for one another, we had economic freedom, we had independence, we were supporting our communities, we were supporting our arts, we were all thriving together. There was a frequency we held. That was freedom, truly freedom. And just by recalling that energy, we hold that frequency and we broadcast it. And when people hear about it, they can feel it. And it's something they then have in their hearts that they're like, oh, wow, I can attune myself to that. So it's really important, all of us talking about these amazing times in the past and looking forward to bringing that energy into cannabis now.
Wow. Amen. Such good wisdom. I concur. It's beautiful too. You're speaking to how Billy put words to feeling, and
Yes.
and you're paying it forward here right now, because it's truly, I've felt that for a long time, and I've never really been able to articulate. And it's a good encapsulation of like keeping the faith and
Yeah.
keeping that frequency alive. I saw a show recently speaking to that little flame and keeping that little flame alive, and
Yes.
and it was a political song. I think it's an old like Pete Seeger, but it's
Cool.
such a universal manifestation or metaphor of
Yeah.
we truly should recall, celebrate the good times, but keep that frequency in our community, especially
Yeah.
in cannabis, because it has been a interesting wild, Mr. Toad's wild ride of
Yeah.
post Prop 64, and I think we do need to keep people in the good frequency and in service of the plant and being friends with cannabis.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we can do. We can do that.
This was amazing. What a great show. Thank you for your time. And can you tell the people about the podcast?
It's called Women of Weed. Wow. We do it alternating Wednesdays, or just check in with the Instagram for, we always post about when we're doing shows. And our goal is to highlight female stories and female voices in cannabis, because we feel that our stories haven't been as much told to the public as men's stories have. So that's what we're doing.
I love it. Yeah, I'm so happy. I listened to a few of them, and I haven't listened to Billy's yet, but I'm going to do that next. And highly recommend it. I think it's really beautiful. And if anyone is looking to connect, via probably the Instagram and share your story, I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun journey. It's been inspiring to me to kind of connect back in with the people part of the scene, because I kind of just unconnected from that, and I stayed with the plants.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, I'm connecting back in with that mycelial network that we all are, and really trying to honor and respect that. Yeah,
stewarding the people garden too is helpful, and it's important, and we everyone could use some TLC. I feel that.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been really great.
And thank you, Santa Cruz, for tuning in. This has been the Cannabis Connection. I am your host, Christopher Carr, and have a beautiful weekend.
A friend or a family member.
Amen.
They're incredible. So yeah, it is good to give a platform to that concept of consciousness, and hopefully inspire other people to open their minds if they're not already. Like, back in the day, there were people millionaires. There were millionaires growing weed.
Yeah.
Right? And to think about what you had to be doing to be making millions.
Totally.
How much and all that, everything involved in that. And Sure, they weren't my style of grower. And, they did everything different than I would have done. And, they just like everything different. I'm like, but like I see now, I'm like, dude, they were just as important and valuable as people like me
Wow.
for cannabis. They really were. I can see it now. I see now more how we're all related than how the differences I was noticing when I was in the thick of it.